The Lagos Judiciary Panel of Inquiry on Restitutions for Victims of SARS-related abuses has reported that the Lekki tollgate shootings of October 20, 2020 as a massacre. The report, which was submitted to Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, added that police officers attempted to cover up the killing of protesters at the toll gate. The tribunal said at least 48 protesters were either shot dead, injured, or with bullet wounds, or were assaulted by soldiers who stormed the Lekki toll gate as protesters peacefully gathered there last year. Arise correspondent Sheitan Atigare reports.
The Lagos Judicial Panel of Inquiry for the Restitution of Victims of SARS-related abuses has presented the full report on their findings and recommendations to Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu.
The panel has, as we've seen, submitted two sets of reports, one being a consolidated report on general police brutality cases, which is by the panel, and another report specific on the report of the Lekki incident investigation of 20th October 2020. I'm going to constitute a four-man committee very immediately, which will be led and headed by the Honorable Attorney General, the Commissioner for Youth and Social Development, the Special Advisor Works, and the Permanent Secretary, the Cabinet Office. The four of them will very, very quickly look through and bring forward a white paper within the next 2 weeks that will be considered at the Lagos State Executive Council and will be gazetted as a white paper coming from the panel of inquiry.
The 309-page document revealed that at the Lekki tollgate, officers of the Nigerian Army shot, injured, and killed unarmed, helpless, and defenseless protesters without provocation or justification while they were waving the Nigerian flag and singing the national anthem, and the manner of assault and killing could in context be described as a massacre. The panel also found that the Nigerian police force deployed its officers to the Lekki tollgate on the night of the 20th, and between that night and the morning of the 21st of October, it shot at, assaulted, and battered unarmed protesters, which led to injuries and deaths. It further revealed that police officers also tried to cover up their actions by picking up bullets. The report also stated that the Lekki concession company manipulated the incomplete CCTV video footage of the Lekki tollgate in an attempt to cover up, as well as the failure to preserve the scene ahead of potential investigations. The panel made 32 recommendations, some which include sanctioning of the officers of the Nigerian Army and the Nigerian Police Force who participated in shooting, injuring, and killing of unarmed protesters at the Lekki tollgate. A public apology to NSAS protesters who were killed, injured, and traumatized by the incident. The memorialization of the Lekki tollgate and the 20th of October. The recognition of hospitals and medical doctors who played heroic roles by saving and minimizing the impact of the injuries suffered by the victims, most of which were on a pro bono basis. The panel recommended various sums of compensation to victims of the tollgate incident, which must be expeditious in order to accelerate the healing process. The report also had a list of 48 casualties and 13 individual petitions in relation to the Lekki tollgate investigation, in which petitioners alleged that they suffered varying degrees of injuries. As regards next steps, the governor awaits feedback from the four-man panel headed by the Attorney General, Moyosore Onigbajo San, to consider the recommendations given by the Lagos Judicial Panel within the next 2 weeks. Sheitan Atigare, Arise News, Lagos.
Sundu, your take on this?
I mean, the only bright spot in this wholly depressing story is the fact that this panel, a state-funded panel, I might add, was able to do this kind of thorough work and use the strongest terms applicable. They're really not shying away from their responsibilities. And if you recall, the conversation at the time was the suspicion that they would. But the Justice Okwuobi-led panel has been diligent in their duties, has been forensic about it, and they deserve every commendation. That word that you like.
A famous phrase that some people don't like.
Yes, but in this case, we like it. So it's heartbreaking to actually see what everybody has suspected for quite a while. You recall that we got fined in Arise News for reporting about this. There was such an attempt to cover up, to gag, but the truth will out, and now it has. We remember the collective gaslighting that the whole country underwent when we were told not to believe the evidence of our own eyes, when we were told that you fire bullets in the air and they're sort of suspended, that the laws of gravity somehow were suspended in Lekki tollgate. Now we know that people have died. They were murdered. And the report used the word massacre.
Lekki
you don't
lies.
get stronger than that. Yes. And then also the people who are missing and presumed dead. The lawyer in me wants to hold out hope for 7 years, which is according to the Evidence Act, when you can now declare them as having died. That's Section 164, subsection 1. So I do hope that somehow they're found by some miracle. But these are human beings. And then those people who were killed without any form of identification. So that brings me to the point in Shaitan's great report here about how to memorialize those people who have died. And I recall, well, I'm more comfortable with the UK, so I won't say unknown soldier, which is American, unknown warrior, which is in England, buried in Westminster Abbey as a result of, some British soldiers who perished in World War I and did not have any ID. And they thought it would be a really great gesture to bury them where royalty and the highest dignitaries are buried, even though they do not know that man's name. And royalty from then, that was King George's time, to date, go there and pay homage and pay respect to that unknown warrior. We need to do that for those people who died. Unarmed protesters waving the Nigerian flag, ambushed in that manner, murdered in cold blood, and then all kinds of lies were told. I could go on. I'm sorry, Dr. Abati, you go ahead.
No, please carry on. Feel free.
It's devastating. It is devastating. These are people's children. When you read the names, there was one I read all the names. There's a Victor, there's Folarunsho, and I'm like, somebody named these children. You name your child Folarunsho. You had plans for this child. And these people were fighting, protesting against police brutality, really protesting, trying to save their own lives, and they were killed in this manner. Then their bodies were carted away to cover up the crime that was committed against them. It is egregious. It is egregious. It is disgusting. And heads must roll. The panel has called for disciplinary action to be taken, and I hope it is to the fullest extent.
Okay, very quickly. Let's start by saying that it is noteworthy that the panel of inquiry led by Justice Doris Okwuobi has finally submitted its report. That panel was set up by the Lagos State government following the resolution of the National Economic Council and the body led by the Vice President of Nigeria recommending to states of the Federation following the, the October 2020 riots around the country against police brutality. And of all the states, I think that the Lagos State government deserves commendation for having the only state, in my view, that has gone through the entire process and that has shown a great commitment. The other commendation, some people don't like it, that's skepticism, but nobody tells me what I say on television or when I write, is that also that panel of inquiry has turned out to be a panel that is committed to the truth. And I see the report that was submitted yesterday to the governor of Lagos State as a way of truth-telling. The panel resolved, after the investigations, the interactions, that one, there was a massacre. They resolved that there was an attempt at cover-up. The panel further resolved that, in fact, the LCC, which is the Lagos Concession Company that is in charge of that toll gate, was making an attempt at a cover-up. And that probably, for some people, will bring the question of the missing camera that was discovered by the man also known as Agent Babatunde Fashola, who had also said, well, he doesn't know the whereabouts of the camera. But the question to now ask going forward is, okay, what would the state government do with this report? Would there be consequential action? We've just been told by the panel focusing on the subject that there were 48 victims. Those 48 victims have been identified. What happens? That panel before now had recommended up to about 400 million naira in terms of compensation. Are there persons who still need to be compensated? Is there something else that we need to know? And beyond the report, what other consequential actions will need to be taken to prevent this kind of situation? Because one of the major embarrassments that we have seen is that extrajudicial killing has not stopped.
Yes.
Police brutality has not stopped. The alienation between the people and the police has not stopped. These are very serious issues in terms of how we learn lessons from specific episodes in our lives. So, well, I think, the panel has done its job in Lagos. We would also like to hear from the other states. Some of the other states, at least about 9 states in certain parts of the country, even refused to conduct any investigation because they said for them police brutality is not an issue. They insisted that for them the issue was security. Okay, even the security, what they did about it, we don't know. Now the state, either the subnational or the sovereign state, has a responsibility to protect the people. This, for me, is the very big takeaway from the exercise that has been conducted in Lagos State. And I hope that other states will follow the example of Lagos and come forward with their own reports so that collectively, as part of the national collective memory, we all can learn certain lessons and Nigeria can strategize going forward to ensure that the police or the security agencies do not constitute themselves into an enemy of the people, because that's a very big issue there. Lives have been lost. The people who will feel the pain are the families that lost their loved ones. No amount of report, no matter how truthful, can bring those lives back. Hopes have been destroyed. Future of so many people, the future of so many people has been destroyed. And that is what makes this particularly painful and sad.
2 things I'll just say, because I wanted to speak extensively on this, but we don't have the time for that. Number 1, there was a woman that was exiled from this country because she reported what she saw. Her name is DJ Switch. This report has vindicated DJ Switch. Number 2, those that went on social media and called the massacre lies, I hope they get a chance to read this report. Those that went on social media and said #Lekki lies and called the massacre lies, I hope they get a chance to read this report. Thirdly, on the 20th of October 2021, on the anniversary of this, the Minister of Information still repeated that nothing happened, that it was all lies. I'd like to see the Minister of Information's reaction to this report. But most importantly, for the loss of lives, I just hope that this family is found healing. The sad reality is most of these families will never heal.
Never.
Because some people never heal. And I just hope we realize that some people never heal when you decide to hurt people. I hope it is a day of national introspection for all of us. Thank you. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotos, Michael Adesua to give updates on Africa global business COVID-19 across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Morning Show here on Arise News. Moving on now to a global business update. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Asia Pacific shares very mixed actually this morning. Investors are monitoring the Biden-China talks, the summit there. China Mainland stocks slightly higher this morning, Japanese stocks relatively muted. So President Xi then of China has been laying out 3 principles for China-US relations in what he describes as a new era. The 2 leaders obviously have been meeting virtually and we're still monitoring basically what's being said there. Xi said during the meeting that China and the US to get along in a new era, both sides should follow the 3 principles. I'm reading this now: mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. Again, that's a translation of what he said, of it clearly. But Beijing typically uses that sort of language, like mutual respect, when it's calling for more favorable trade terms from the United States. No specifics from Biden administration so far, but he did say, and this is being quoted quite widely, he did say not to allow competition to veer into conflict. Meantime, when he wasn't summiting, Joe Biden found the time to sign into law the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. We're talking, it's the first part of his party's sprawling economic agenda. $550 billion into transportation, $110 billion into roads, bridges, and other things. $66 billion. I'm just reeling off these numbers just to give you an idea of the kind of size. Plus, I think probably most importantly, $65 billion into expanding broadband. Apparently, during the pandemic, a lot of people staying at home during the lockdown were not able to get internet access. Okay, so into cryptos then. Bitcoin's dropped nearly 7% to $60,000, among other major cryptocurrencies plunging. No reason actually can be found for this. I've been to a couple of sources, nothing at the moment. Emphasis behind it, not absolutely clear. Although we do know that China's state planner, the National Development and Reform Commission, is continuing with its cleaning up, as it puts it. It was saying today of the virtual currency mining in the country. Let us therefore recap to the United States. Stock futures actually flat because investors are waiting not just to see if there's going to be any improvements in US-China relations, but inflation fears are actually weighing down as well. Walmart kicks off a busy week as far as retail investing is concerned. So we'll get some idea of what investors are looking at, and also what consumers are actually spending on. That's the most important thing. Home Depot 2 Target results tomorrow. Google has announced it's invested $1 billion Australian dollars, that's 740 million dollars into Australia over the next 5 years. It's had obviously a checkered history in Australia, as you know, as we've often reported on this program. They've been accused of helping to spread disinformation. This is Google. And during hearings in court, actually, earlier this year, Google Australia's managing director Mel Silver threatened to block the search engine and stop people actually being able to search using it and get onto various websites. For its part, Australia's government is continuing to ask Google and Facebook and other big technology firms to pay for news content on their platforms. Australia sees it, and Google does, as trying to giving it a major boost, basically, for Sydney's ambitions to become the Silicon Valley of the Southern Hemisphere. On these shores in the UK, the big 4 accounting watchdogs, Deloitte, EY, that's used to be called Ernst & Young, PwC and KPMG, have been told by this man, Sir John Thompson, who's the head of the Financial Reporting Council, to clean up their act and improve their auditing. 30% apparently of their audits have been called into question, or as the council puts it, the reporting council puts it, requiring improvement. Finally, on commodities, I like to listen to when this guy speaks. Daniel Yergin, there he is. He's a guru, basically. He wrote the definitive book on oil 20 to 25 years ago. He's now working elsewhere, but working for IHS Markit. But but he's saying there's a disconnect between the realities of what's actually happening and the dynamics of the oil market and actually what policies are really being implemented. And international oil companies are under pressure. Finding a new balance, though, he says, between the US and China is the single most important issue in international affairs today. ExxonMobil has begun the process of selling off its assets, including shale oil fields. Its target is $15 billion. And the Secretary General of OPEC has said that COP26 in Glasgow certainly was a wake-up moment, but he feels as though the fossil fuels will be around for a number of years. On the markets, oil rebounded, Brent at about 82, WTI about 81, but obviously tempered by global fears of dropping demand. That is your global view.
Right, Michael, real quickly. Andrew Bailey was speaking yesterday, and he did talk a little bit, he made a hint about this interest rate rises. So this game of back and forth they're played, I don't get it. I don't get it, Michael. I mean, you've been a business journalist for about 50 years. You have all the experience in this. What is happening? Secondly, Shell, I used to know Royal Dutch Shell to be Anglo-Dutch. But now they're coming straight into Britain, putting all their taxation in Britain. They're saying they're seeing a viable business environment. Kwesi Kwarteng, business secretary, is happy about this. What is happening to Shell? Anything we need to know?
Shell, first of all, they're going through a transition. There's been this debate, hasn't it, where it would list, actually, and it's still going through a stage of turning into one of the very important businesses, I feel, that actually we're at COP26 saying to politicians, you need to get a move on because we are moving ahead on this. I think this is part of their changing plan. I share absolutely your worries about the governor of the Bank of England and this flip-flop. It's the same thing. The Fed is actually losing its credibility as well. If you talk to major investors, it's not just people like me. I mean, really major investors are looking at this saying, come on, just give us where you think we're going to go. Give us the usual kind of signs. And none of these central banks are actually doing it. I mean, the ECB, as we've reported before, has said it's happy with the level of inflation. And we're still looking at inflation in the United States, as I was reporting earlier. We're not quite sure whether it's sticky or not. Is this fundamental or is it just a spike? And again, Andrew Bailey is playing this kind of game. It really does. It drags the reputation of central banks right down into, well, which way are we going to turn? And the only people that are doing this right now, as we continue to say on this program, are the bond markets. That's where you look to find out what the general sentiment of hardening money asset repurchase and also interest rates is going to be. It's the market that's telling us things, not central bankers. I couldn't agree with you more.
Still on Shell. Let's stay on Shell. Shell, known as the Royal Dutch Shell Company, moving its tax residence to London. How much of a political move is that? There are analysts who have been saying that there is a plan by Shell to split its divisions and then to split its operations for strategic reasons. Is there any truth to that? And in any case, again, I was also going to ask you about the infrastructure bill in the U.S., over $1 trillion. Now it's been signed, success for, bipartisanship. But there's also the remaining act or bill, Build Better Back bill, which will be signed. Are we likely to see the same kind of bipartisanship in that regard? And then Cathay Pacific has told its staff that when they lay over and they return, they must stay at home for 3 days and minimize contact, social contact, for 21 days. Do you think that's something that other crews in other airlines should emulate?
Well, that's down to the airlines themselves. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we? About airlines saying, well, we're a special case and we need some kind of help because of the transitionary costs of this and layoffs and keeping people away. I have to say, my attitude towards it as a customer would be, I would hope that all the customer-facing operatives, whether it be in the National Health Service, whether it be in airlines and so on, are actually fully vaccinated, so that at least when we're sitting on an aeroplane, if that indeed is what we're going to do, within that thin metal tube, we don't want to be assaulted by germs, particularly and coronavirus germs either. We want to be confident that the people actually looking after us as we're buying the tickets, are shielding themselves and therefore through that shielding us. As far as Shell's concerned, again, a period of transition. I think what's happening, I think it's quite political. I think that if this is to do, and I don't know this, if this is to do with the business secretary actually working with a multinational like Shell, then I think that's actually quite good. We know that our government is under considerable, well, it's not considerable, huge pressure to try to make Brexit work, in other words, that we have an independent role in the world. And if big companies like Shell are saying we will headquarter and we will tax ourselves here, I think that's very good.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson. Thank you very much indeed.
Our dependable Rota Sajiri is here to give us an African business update. Over to you, Rota. Good
All
morning.
right. Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, viewers. So we kick off, again, South Africa, intra-Africa trade fair that's taking place in Durban. Bosun Amofaye got another exclusive with President Buhari, the second one after the morning show in just a matter of months. Yeah, so this interview, he asked the president about what is being done for SMEs, and the president's answer was a bit confusing. He started off by saying that he's building infrastructure, but then he now went off into oil prices. He started talking about oil prices before his administration came into power, and then oil prices crashing after he came into power. Then he talked about insecurity in the north and militancy in the south. Bosun then followed up and asked, okay, what are you doing as far as infrastructure for SMEs beyond the climes of Nigeria? And then he talked about the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and traffic. So it was pretty confusing. If you're following Arise TV on Instagram, this is pretty much a viral video now. As of last night, when I checked, it was about 5,000 views. This morning, it's almost 20,000 views already. So if you're following the Arise News official page, you can take a listen. Look, if you ask a member of his economic team, what are you doing for SMEs, you'll get more specific answers. If you ask Gordon Emefiele of the CBN, what are you doing for SMEs? He'll tell you about the interventions of the CBN in different sectors. He'll tell you about the intervention interest rate that's been reduced by 400 basis points from 9% to 5%. The moratorium on paying back those intervention loans which is going on, 2 years now for SMEs. If you ask Vice President Osibanjo about what he's doing for SMEs, he chairs the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. So he'll tell you what they're trying to do there. Zainab Ahmed at the Ministry of Finance. So, again, for those who are interested, you can go watch the video. It was, quite odd. Now, still in Durban, South Africa, on the Global Business Report at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, Bosun was talking to the CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. He asked him the same question, what are you doing for SMEs? I want you to take a listen to what he said in their conversation. Let's take a listen.
Creative entrepreneurs, they're not waiting for government. They're already selling on Instagram, selling on social media, selling on Facebook. They're doing their things. We got some in a partnership with, not the other one, not DHL, UPS, offering our Nigerian SMEs, women-owned businesses, half price to move their goods all across the world. And also giving them space in their various warehouses all over the world. So many of those things are happening. Yeah, but I say, for us, Nigeria, to thrive in the African continental free trade area, we need to produce more.
All right, so that was Olusegun Awolowo, CEO of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council. You'll notice him saying entrepreneurs are not waiting for federal government. They are selling on Instagram. They are selling on Facebook. They are selling on social media. He was very careful not to mention Twitter, which again goes back to the importance of, in this digital age, the platforms that are needed for entrepreneurs and SMEs to be able to sell their products. By the way, the Nigeria Day at this forum takes place, I believe, tomorrow or Thursday. The theme is Discover Nigeria. And you've got a lot of people that are producing shoes, bags, all different types of things that are going to be setting up their own booth in order to promote. You need the platforms. It was right here on the morning show on October 1st of this year, where we were talking about the fact that it's been 4 months since the Twitter ban. President Buhari, in his speech to the nation, said that the ban would be lifted with conditions. Till now, we haven't heard anything. But again, that just goes to show you the importance of these platforms. To electricity, yesterday we talked about the fact that the prepaid meters were, the price was being increased by 30% for single phase and triple phase. Well, according to that letter on the left-hand side of your screen from the Electricity Regulation Commission, the NERC is saying, well, no, that's not the case. And I think they were referencing us and other media houses saying that they've taken note of some reports in the media saying the prices are going up. They said, well, no, that's not the case. They said you will get a free prepaid meter under the meter asset program. If you don't want to wait in line, you can go buy one right now, and then you will be paid back in credits, is what they're saying. So that's NERC coming out. I don't know what it is. It seems like whenever we take a step towards market-reflective prices for things in this country, there's some knee-jerk reaction that, I don't know if it's fear or what causes it, where the government comes and said that's not the case. But look, you know, the price of meters is what it is. Finally, the World Bank headline and cover page on today's This Day newspaper, the World Bank is saying that Boko Haram has caused economic activity in the Northeast to decline by 50%. No surprise there.
I mean, no surprise on those numbers, but two things I'd like to say. You see, when it comes to shoring up the potential of SMEs, you can't just say they are selling themselves. You need to create the platform for them to sell. You need to encourage. You need to give money. I have sat down in many export forums, many export committees. When we review the numbers of AGOA, it is always very appalling. Most of the AGOA, Africa Growth and Opportunity Act quota for Nigeria, still goes to exporting crude.
Right.
Little handbag, raffias, little products like that. People don't export that. Why? Because we've not created enough capital for them to export. I know so much about the export business, and you'll be shocked that it is still foreigners that dominate the export business out of Nigeria. We need to be intentional. The government needs to be intentional. It needs to open up for those platforms for people to trade. I don't see why the government can't set up its own e-commerce site for small businesses. I don't see why the government can't set up its own loan scheme for small businesses. I don't see why the government can't incentivize the small businesses with some form of more tax holidays. We need to be intentional with SMEs. There are 41 million SMEs in this country. Anywhere in the world, SMEs run the economy. From Germany, they are called Mittelstaats, to Korea, where they are called Shables. They become multinationals today. If General Park did not take the subvention from America to help those businesses in Korea, they will not grow.
Well, okay, first, with regard to export promotion and investment, we have made the point on this program that President Muhammadu Buhari lately has gone all out there as the chief marketing officer for Nigeria in terms of trade and investment. And he's been given concrete assurances from Riyadh to Glasgow to France and now to South Africa. And we have some of his employees like Segun Awolowo, who is in charge of export promotion, also further pushing the envelope. We have Godwin Emefiele pushing the envelope. We have the Minister of Finance pushing the envelope. So it's a very good drive as President Muhammadu Buhari, I imagine, tries to concretize his legacy, particularly in this area of trade and investment. But there are two big issues, two elephants in the room. One is security. The other issue is that in spite of all these efforts, since 2015, we have to take a critical look at the balance of trade, payments that Nigeria has. We continue to we import more than we export. So, and there is no shortage of ideas in that regard. So it's not bad. You can go from Riyadh to Durban to wherever, but what are we doing to look at that balance of trade payments, in terms of what the advantage is for Nigeria? Because even when we go to all these events, there isn't enough follow-up to show that there's some kind of a significant improvement. That, for me, is a basic concern. And then you refer to metering. Yes, there's a statement out there saying, well, the federal government is continuing with its national mass metering program, and that 900,000 meters have been given out free of charge under that. And that there's also an effort to encourage the discos. Well, the discos are saying something else. Two, I don't know too many people who got those meters free. You will still be charged for it. So consumers of electricity, are experiencing one thing. The federal government of Nigeria is saying another thing. And at the same time, we're told that so much money has been devoted to this. I think that what needs to be done by the NERC and the relevant ministries is to do a reality check. Is the national mass metering program working? Is it reaching the people? So it's not enough to just issue some paragraphs and tell people, oh, it's not true, we're increasing the prices of, single unit meters or three-phase meters. That's not the issue. That press release that you quoted is not addressing the issue, in my view.
Well, it certainly does not address the issue like you outlined. I guess we don't have much time. Just suffice to say that it's important for all government officials to toe the party line, even if that party line is a widely acknowledged disaster, such as suspending Twitter and placing all kinds of conditions and whatnot. Segun Awolowo got to South Africa, could hardly be saying, yeah, post on Twitter, which is the issue with what happened when Governor Rufai did it. Things aren't suspended just because you've hopped on a plane. You do have to toe the line, but the issue is the policy in itself. And the fact that it's just hamstringing a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's most unfair. Well, thank you, Reuters.
Thank you.
Now for an update on COVID-19 pandemic, Adeswa Amoran is here with us. Good morning, Adeswa.
Good morning, Tunu. Great to see you. Good morning, Dr. Abati, and good morning, Rufai.
Morning.
Well, here are the figures you need to know as at today. Good morning, Rufai, and good morning to our viewers across the world. Over 253 million infections, at least 5.1 million deaths, while 7.4 billion doses have been administered so far. So those are the critical figures. I must also remind you that a vast majority of people infected by this virus recover. However, we're beginning to see those who continue to have symptoms, otherwise known as long COVID, several weeks and months after they have recovered. So not much has changed when you look at the figures. I have reeled that for you today according to Johns Hopkins University tally. Not much has changed since the last time I was with you guys. Europe still remains the epicenter of recent spike in cases and deaths. We'll talk a bit more about Europe in a moment, but here in Nigeria, the country recorded 30 cases and 8 deaths in the last 24 hours. We now have confirmation from the Nigerian health authorities that the country is seeing a decline of coronavirus cases. However, they were quick to point out yesterday at the Presidential Steering Committee meeting that Nigeria is witnessing an upsurge of COVID-19 fatalities. Now, 150 deaths were recorded in 2 months. And according to the NCDC boss, Dr. Adetifa, he says 81% of those 150 individuals were unvaccinated. He also said that 3% were partially vaccinated, while only 4% were fully vaccinated. That again points to the importance of vaccination. And speaking about that briefing, we also got the announcement of the most ambitious target yet by Nigeria to reach herd immunity. The government, through the NPHCDA, announced plans to commence mass vaccination campaign later this week. To be precise, on Friday. Now, the goal is to vaccinate 111 million people by January next year. Wonder how this will happen? We're currently at a 2.9% fully vaccinated. To move to 50% in January, how's this going to happen? Well, the plan is to see campaigns, vaccine sites, beg your pardon, set up at private health facilities, universities, colleges, markets, motor parks, shopping malls, and other venues. You're wondering, where is the vaccine coming from? Do we have enough? Well, the government says we actually do have enough vaccines at the moment, and are expecting more to come. In the last 1 month, Nigeria has received over 5 million doses from the COVAX facility, as well as donations from the governments of Germany, Italy, and Switzerland. Now, we do know that the PHC had a hiatus from this regular briefing, so they had a lot to say. Very quickly, some of the other important information that were reeled out yesterday at that briefing. Now, those procuring vaccination cards may soon have themselves to blame as the government commences a verification exercise of the available cards. We are told that an arrest has been made of an individual who illegally, well, it's actually a crime to procure those vaccination cards because the procedure is for you to get vaccinated and get your card. They say they will let us know more as the investigation gets underway. It's a fight to ensure the integrity of those cards, I must tell you. On the aviation front, we're told yesterday at the briefing that the UAE has reviewed guidelines for Nigerians traveling to the country. Passengers from Nigeria will now have to do 3 COVID-19 tests, 2 before departure and 1 on arrival. Emirates, the airline, has graciously said they will take tabs for 2 of those tests. So let me tell you what they are. The first test will be taken 48 hours before departure. That will be paid by the Nigerian passenger or the passenger leaving from Nigeria. The second test will then be done 8 hours before boarding. This is the new test that has been introduced. We had previously seen the 48-hour test, but the 8-hour before boarding test is the new one introduced by the UAE. Now, Emirates Airline says they will pay for that. And of course, the final test is the test on arrival when you do arrive the country. Emirates say they will also take up that tab. But will this be for all the airlines leaving from Nigeria to the UAE? That we are not so sure about. Still on the aviation front, on the local scene, the Minister of Health actually hinted during that briefing yesterday that local airlines may actually at some point begin to ask for proof of vaccination before you're able to board and travel within Nigeria. Quickly, guys, away from Nigeria to Europe. I did promise that we were going to talk about Europe. Now, the alarm bells are ringing. We're starting to see measures to curb those spiking cases and deaths on the continent. In Latvia, unvaccinated lawmakers are barred from parliament. In Netherlands, they've gone into lockdown. Germany is considering imposing lockdown this week as well. Sometime, I think on Friday, we should be expecting Germany to announce that new lockdown measure. But I must tell you that Austria has become the first European country to take a drastic action. Now, police in the country yesterday began carrying out routine checks on commuters to ensure compliance with what they call a nationwide lockdown for the unvaccinated. So this is the lockdown for the unvaccinated. If you have not been vaccinated in Austria, in the next 10 days, you have to remain indoors except for essential shopping or work. Those who are found to be in breach face fines between 5 and 3,600 euros in Austria. And finally, in Egypt, Egypt has become the latest African country to enforce vaccine mandates for its public workers in general, not just public health workers. According to the government rules, which came into effect yesterday, public university students are also barred from campuses if they are not vaccinated. The public employees that are barred from their offices will have to show a PCR test weekly if they are to even, gain access to their workplaces. And this is not so different from what we might be seeing in Nigeria in the coming weeks, guys.
Well, I just wanted to say that it's really heartening to hear about that vaccination drive coming to the shopping mall or the university or motor park near you. But nobody is taking Dr. Abati's cue of how it should be, supplemented with some jollof rice incentives. Why is that? Is it a budgetary issue? Because surely that would really help that drive. I imagine it's budgetary, yes?
Okay.
I totally agree with you, Tundu. Imagine having to go get vaccinated and having a plate of hot jollof rice.
There'll be queues around the block.
But we don't see that coming.
Well, maybe that will help. But I think the interesting point is that for a while, you've not reported, feedback from the Presidential Steering Committee and the National Primary Health Development Agency. Not due to your own fault, it's because they themselves did not give a report for weeks. But of course, yesterday, Monday, We had the Presidential Steering Committee and Dr. Faisal Shuaib, that's his name, right, of the MPSCDA giving a report. For me, a number of quick issues. One, he says that about 5 million plus persons have taken at least a first dose. About 3 million persons plus, about 3.8 million persons have taken 2 doses in Nigeria. That's about 2.9%. Well, if you look at it, if you benchmark that with what has been done by other countries, even if they don't have our population, such as Mauritius, Comoros Islands, and all of that, also in Africa, you see that, yes, Nigeria definitely needs to ramp up its vaccination process if we're to achieve the objective stated by both the chairman of the Presidential Steering Committee and the head of the Primary Healthcare Development Agency to achieve herd immunity. Now, what we're told is that Nigeria is in a position to be able to achieve up to about 50% of the eligible population of 111.3 million persons. And, you know, we're told vaccines are already arriving. Only last week, they got vaccines from the AVATT. Vaccines are coming from Pfizer and Moderna. And so Nigeria says we're in a good position to ensure that very early in 2022, up to about 50% of the eligible population will have been fully immunized. That's encouraging. The other leg of it is the position that, look, people should go out and take the vaccines because we don't have issues now in terms of supply, even if we need more, right? And then they talked about what they call a national mass vaccination program, which will make it possible for Nigerians, the federal government, liaising with the state governments to make vaccines available. Private hospitals, universities, schools, motor parks, and all of that. Now, the chairperson of the Presidential Steering Committee said that will be launched on November 20. I think that that will be an encouraging thing to see, you know, to see Nigerians having direct access and these vaccines being available. There was also, you know, a message sent out there about fake vaccination cards, that there are Nigerians who are collecting fake vaccination cards. And both the MPHCDA boss and the chairman of the PSC were both very clear. They said, look, if you have a fake vaccination card, for you to go through any Nigerian border, you will be stopped. And I think that, you know, if they can put the mechanism in place, that also will work. Finally, they celebrated the fact that now Nigerians are not subjected to very strict restrictions to be able to go to the United Kingdom. And they patted themselves on the back. Okay, that's interesting because you know that many Nigerians would like to go to the UK. Now, as for Egypt and Austria, well, we've seen this also in the United States, also in Canada, countries, jurisdictions imposing what they call vaccine mandates. The whole idea is to ensure that people take the vaccination, you know, they take the vaccine, you know, they protect others, also while in protecting themselves. But we've seen variations from one country to the other. In Austria, even the police have been asked to go out there and do routine checks. And whoever does not take the vaccine will be fined 1,450 euros. Maybe Nigeria will not get to that point. We also have a vaccine mandate here for federal workers, effective December 1. So we'll see how the Nigerian government manages to enforce that.